Rasheed Wallace drove a truck from North Carolina to Flint, Michigan with bottled water to bring the people of Flint, just in a way a disaster, third world country situation. They're dealing with no clean water there right now. Justin, he's your spirit animal. Talk about Rasheed.
Sheed! I love it. I think it's really nice to see a lot of guys with Michigan ties really banding together and contributing in this crisis. Rasheed Wallace, you hear about him. He's one of the most intelligent guys out there. I know that's hard for some people that only watch his playing days to believe, but it's a really thoughtful guy, and this is another example of that. With this whole Flint crisis, the one disappointment I've kind of had with it, as far as NBA connections, is Cavs owner Dan Gilbert, who is from the Michigan area. He owns a lot of downtown Detroit. He's basically been silent on this issue. And we're talking one of the wealthiest people in the world, forget just America. That's been a little bit disappointing to me, but it is really nice to see Rasheed Wallace kind of step up and kind of do his part in helping out with Flint.
Phil Sheed, I mean, what do you think about this guy on the court when you think about his career?
Oof. I would say opportunity missed.
Really?
And I know it sounds strange, but I'm actually in a large way on the same bandwagon as Justin here. Myself, even Mike, the other writer for Hoops Lounge, always been huge fans of his ability and talent. Very fiery guy, kind of like Kevin Garnett in the same way. He plays with immense passion, and that's where a lot of those texts came from, right? I don't think he's a bad guy. He just plays with a lot of heart and a lot of passion. But to me, when you looked at his ability, when he played with Detroit, Larry Brown came out saying that he was the best defensive player he'd ever coached. And he was also coaching at the same time Ben Wallace, right? And then his ability to step out, having that LaMarcus Aldridge type release that no one could touch. He's a 7-footer, incredibly athletic, like underratingly athletic. He played well for North Carolina. He played well his whole career. I mean, he's one of those players that I think if you could have, I don't even know how you would have done it, because maybe that fire was what drove him, but the fact that he missed games and missed playing time, I think, was one of those things that we didn't get to see the Rasheed Wallace I think we could have seen.
Justin, was he a prototype of the guys playing now?
In a lot of ways, I think he is one of the guys that kind of was the first stretch big that could also rebound, defend. He pass, very underrated passer. To me, him, Sean Marion. Sean Marion was kind of the one that really showed us the first like small ball four in a pace and space style. They're the ones that come to mind when I think of the modern NBA. But Rasheed Wallace, I don't think we've seen someone exactly like him. I don't know when we ever will, just because he was so polished in the post game, which is something that has gone away. But he was a really unique player that made people rethink kind of how the NBA offense could work, especially when he was playing as a stretch four next to Ben Wallace. I think that's something a lot of people looked at after they upset the Lakers and started to replicate, because it is a bit of a copycat league.
And also on top of that, I think it can be said that, you know, who knows how his career would have gone had he not started with Portland, right? That whole situation, while, you know, a lot of those players are really fun, but they were called the Jailblazers for a reason, right? I'm not saying they necessarily did anything illegal, but, you know, it wasn't the most professional environment with Bonzi Wells and, you know,
Damon Stoudemire, Zach Randolph.
Exactly. People forget Zach Randolph's. I'm forgetting the orders, but even Jermaine O'Neal started there at one point.
Steve Kerr was there too.
Steve Kerr, but Bonzi Wells was definitely not one of the good ones. But anyways, I'm just, if he would have started in a different situation, I think we would have seen something different. Like, we saw him move from there, Atlanta quickly, and then, you know, we finally saw him in a good situation in Detroit. But, you know, how old was he by then? Like, like he wasn't super old, but had he been able to foster that type of talent in a situation where, professionalism was the number one thing instead of, having fun and being with your buddies. I don't know, like you see this all the time with sports players. They're like, you can have incredible talent that's put in the wrong situation and it just never flourishes, and then you have pretty good talent like Mark's favorite Kawhi Leonard is put in a perfect situation and flourishes perfectly. So I think he was so incredibly talented. Like all those players that we could mention, I don't think do it justice. I think his ability to he had a really good post game. He had a really good outside shot, and his defensive ability, like even modern players, I'm like, what you mix and match LaMarcus Aldridge with Serge Ibaka as one person, like that kind of a thing. I mean, it's so tough to do, and I think he was so talented that even despite the situation he was in and perhaps his poor attitude at the time, but despite all that, his immense talent still showed through.
Justin, is he a Hall of Famer?
I don't think he's going to get in. In my opinion, I think he's a Hall of Fame talent in terms of his ability, but I don't believe that he's going to get in.
Phil, what's he going to do next? Besides driving trucks, showing up at random games, he was an assistant for, I think, the Pistons last year. Do you see him going into broadcasting? Do you see him just doing his own thing?
I don't know. I think people who go into broadcasting, if he would have done it, he would have done it already. I think it's more of a personality thing. I think he just stays behind, behind the scenes. And I wouldn't even be that surprised to see him do some charitable work or some community stuff, considering he seems like a really good guy that way. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of public light on Rasheed Wallace. I think he's going to enjoy retirement.
Justin, I'll give you the last word. What's your favorite Sheed memory?
I think my favorite Sheed memory was him getting a technical for just staring at the ref. When he just walked, just staring at him the whole time, and he gets thrown out of the game just for staring. And then I believe it was Mark Jackson that was running over. I think it was, Steve, what's his face? Anyways, one of his teammates runs over and he's like, "What'd he do? What'd he do?" He didn't say anything. He's like, "I warned him 100 times not to stare at me, not to try to intimidate me," and he kept staring at me. So he got thrown out of the game without saying a word.
Oh, Rasheed Wallace.